We are
Now, one thing I
live.
remember
I couldn't
is that
tell you
you
were going to do
can't.
it because you were gritty. It's like you remembered you do this, and then I could see it on your face. You were like, the time has come.
If you say we're live right away, it cuts off the beginning.
Yeah.
Was it? I'd forgotten that. Thanks. Thank you for reminding me. That's really
Nice. You
good.
should wait a second before we start.
Okay. Okay, then. So I just realised I hadn't put the title of the stupid thing on my thing. So there we go. Oh, dear, that's not good. Anyway, so what happens next? Do I go?
You go. You go. That's what happens.
This is Literary Roadhouse. One short story once a week. My name's Gerald.
My name's Andy.
And I'm an ace.
And today, or this week, or this last month, we've been reading The City-Born Great by N.K. Jemisin. If you haven't read the story yet, but you want to listen to the podcast, go read the story. We'll still be here when you get back. Don't you worry. We're in New York City with an unnamed narrator. He's black, homeless, and his only friend is someone he calls Sao Paulo. He's something not white by the standards of the people in the cafe where we see them meet. Paulo has a place to sleep and can afford to buy food. He feels anxious about the attention of the city cops. I'm doing this all wrong. Sorry. I should have edited this, shouldn't I? Our unnamed narrator feels anxious about the attention of the city cops. Paulo tells us a story that the city has to become born. He encourages the narrator to listen to its breathing. The author says, great cities are like any other living things, being born and maturing and wearying and dying in their turn. Our narrator paints mouths all over the city, allowing it to breathe better, to Paulo's approval. After a day in the library, the narrator is chased by two cops who become one amorphous blob until it chases our hero across the FDR highway and it gets splattered by a semi-truck. Eventually, he helps the city become born with many human birth analogies. Then, 50 years later, he is in Los Angeles, rich and looking himself like Paulo did for the person who will birth this city. I'm sorry about that summary. That was a bit rubbish, but anyway.
Well, it's hard to summarize this story. Also, I don't think he drew mouths. He was drawing throats that did not connect to mouths or stomachs.
Just throats.
Just throats.
Oh,
It matters. It's not. I mean, it matters, I guess. Everything the writer writes is deliberate, but also I'm just saying for the purposes of your summary, nothing was really lost. Yeah.
So my summary was wrong, eh? Okay, I get it.
Only in the literal sense.
Very
it's
good.
True on a deeper metaphysical level.
Yeah. In spirit, it was correct. All right.
I think you're right. Yes. Go on.
So, Andy,
Yo,
what did you think of this story?
Man, really liked reading it. It's I was a little, I don't even want to say conflicted because that's not right, but it was really cool idea, really cool thing to think about, and like all of our cities and how we're connected to them and how they take care of us and we take care of them. And ancient cities are a thing. You know, I don't always think about ancient cities. I live in America. We don't go very ancient, right? I like Sao Paulo being connected to Machu Picchu. Was it Machu Picchu? I think it was Machu Picchu. Right? It was just neat. Was it Machu Picchu? Someone correct me.
Yes, it was connected to Machu Picchu. The reason why I'm not saying anything is because that was one part where I was like, but why though? Like that's just cool. It's cool, but like geographically and historically speaking, I don't think very accurate. Maybe now I've got to like dig in. Like, how far did the Incas go? Did they make it all the way to Sao Paulo?
I don't know. Incas are cool.
Yeah,
they make that soda.
They do. Inca Cola is pretty good, and that is definitely the Incans. But like, I wonder if like that connection, if it's a connection like historically and geographically in the way that I would think about it, or is it just
like Gerald, you're getting bogged down in facts, and it's true on a metaphysical level. And let's just
yeah.
But so like, I liked it. I liked reading it a lot. It was very neat and good. the only thing that was like frustrating, I don't know. I could tell that the author has a deep connection to all of these specific places and things, and like I don't know what any of those things are. I don't know what this expressway is. And if it was a story about a real city like Chicago, I'd be like, oh yeah, there's that stuff that speaks to me on a deep personal level.
So you only like stories based in Chicago, then?
Well, no, just I could tell there was something the author had experienced that was trying to communicate, but it was a communication that was, I don't know, still very settled in a specific place, right? Without an experience of that place, I could only get so much of it.
You see, that doesn't really bother me, and all the sort of, go east on 54th Street and west on 72nd or something, all that stuff. I mean, I used to read a lot of Jonathan Kellerman, who always described his journey. I think he was in Los Angeles or somewhere like that, somewhere Californian. And he would describe his journey. So going along this highway and taking the first left off to da-da-da, and then traveling the I-264. And it doesn't bother me. I have no idea where these places are and if they even exist and if they're connected, but it's fine. It shows us like a movement, a change of location.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I guess before I reply to the specifics of those things, Jones, what did you think of the story overall?
I liked it for something that was weird and a bit quirky and a bit peculiar. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I missed the fact in the introduction that the main character was male. I had him as a female until about a third of the way through. I thought, oh, he's male. But that's my fault. It's not his. And yeah. Good. It's good. The whole. I used to have problems with these sort of stories, as you remember, because it just made no sense. What city gives birth to itself and stuff. But actually, perhaps I'm more grown up and mature these days, and I'm happy to read these things and sink into the world that's a bit strange and a bit weird, but it's definitely magical realism, isn't it? Because it's got that reality with the mix of magical weird stuff going on as well. So I really enjoyed it a lot. I don't know what it was about, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I liked it more intellectually than I did emotionally, which is like such a weird cop-outy podcasty thing to say. But just like I really like urban fantasy, modern. I don't read enough of it, so when I get a little glimpse into it, I'm like, well, that's cool, right? Like it's really like using the words like eldritch horror in like a very like modern urban setting when normally it's reserved for like, your typical fantasy setting that's like D&D like or like Tolkien-esque, is cool and fun. So I liked all of that. But I think for some reason I don't know. I like the concept of it, but it didn't really like get me in the way that some stories sometimes get me. I don't know why yet. But that whole thing about like going like street by street, it's really funny because since I do know the area very well, just things were like, he's going east on 42nd, then he turns left and the street numbers start going up instead of down. I was like, correct. I don't know why I'm making sure the author is correct. You can easily get this from any map. All right. This is not secretive information that only New Yorkers have. But I was like, okay. And he's like, I'm approaching the end. I'm like, yes, you are. I'm glad you're thinking about that. Tick. You are indeed. And you should not go that way. And just things like with the prose changed all of a sudden to like the panicky stream of consciousness crossing FDR. Very good. Yeah. That is correct to the New York experience. So
yes. You wouldn't want to do that, would you?
The whole like crossing FDR bit is like my favorite part of the story, I think. Just
Yeah, being
followed by this blobby
blob cops. Oh, coming next summer on Fox, Blob Cops.
Don't you joke. It
could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it could.
So I guess I had the opposite of Andy, since I do know the area well. I was like, but for me, it wasn't like I was enjoying that somebody knows the map of New York City. No, it was like this obnoxious, like, tick, you are correct. Like,
you'll be one of those people on the internet, won't you? Yes. And if she'd made a mistake, you'd have said, "This is not correct."
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have said it on. Well, actually, this is the podcast where I say these things. Remember when Andy was like, "The hills of Chicago"? Yes. That was like 20 minutes of his review. I might have done that. Yeah.
The hills of Chicago.
Well, that I don't know. It's a swamp, man.
Yeah. Never mind.
Okay, so that's
interesting though, because that was the thing I thought I was missing, was like, oh, that emotional connection. But then you're reading it was specifically pulled you out of a deeper emotional connection. You got stuck in some sort of like fact checking. Right.
Fact checking. Yeah, I don't even know if that's necessarily what pulled me out. Honestly, sometimes I think it was the narrator who pulled me out. Like, I thought her choice of narrator was smart, making it like this gay homeless black kid who graffiti artist. Like, I think that's smart, and it seems to be a common thing because Paulo was a favela boy, similar thing in Sao Paulo. So like, I kind of like that choice, but there was so much time being spent like, I don't care, like, I'm too cool, that I was just like, I think like it was that, like, there was a lot of not caring for somebody who cares a lot. Like I liked when the narrator was describing the city more, but when he was describing the city more, it revealed why he was chosen to be midwife, because he cares a lot for someone who's like, I don't care. So I think that's what bothered me.
I wonder if that's made me think.
Bothered is not correct. Bothered's not correct. Made me like want to speed past that. Yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. Mm-hmm.
So here's an interesting thing. I've recently been reading the Earthsea books by Ursula Le Guin. Mm-hmm. And her narrator is an obnoxious, stupid kid who does like stupid kid things. And he's like, man, I'm going to hate him. He's my nemesis. And I'm like, kid, you guys are just friends and you're stupid because you're 14. So, but like this, it feels like what you're saying is the same sort of operating principle. Like, I don't care. Like, yeah, you do. We know you do. But I wonder if maybe just in a short story that didn't have the time to sort of mature the way it might have in a longer work, right? So if you have, I don't care kid who secretly he cares all the way, drawn out more, it might feel different.
Right. Yeah, maybe other things could have come through to make him more endearing to me. Yeah.
Right.
Like, I'm sympathetic to him. It's not like I'm rooting against him because I find, but I just, yeah. Yeah, and it just felt like overdone sometimes. Like, okay, got it. You don't care. Yeah. Actually, she wants to make this into a trilogy, or maybe she already did something. So this story was up for Hugo, and I think there's a trilogy coming out from it. Which, honestly, it's funny because I was reading, somebody was talking about this on a Reddit thread that I was reading, and they were really excited about the book. And I was like, I don't know if it would sustain an entire trilogy. Maybe like a novella. I could imagine this going a little bit longer, but not trilogy long. So I'm a little confused, but I don't know. Maybe there's something else happening here. Maybe the ancient horror comes back and all the cities fight it together, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of kind of interesting is in that I think it works. I think it works as it is for me. I'm quite happy with what they're trying to do, and I like the little bit at the end to show that he's like sort of, you know, continuing the process, and he's now looking for the midwife, as you say. That's quite a good description. So I quite like that, and it's quite sort of encompassing. I can't imagine this being any longer than it is. No. I think it's. I think there's enough. It's nearly 7,000 words, so I think that's to me, that's long enough to get across the idea, get across the who the protagonist is, and tell the story. I doubt whether I'd read a novel or even a novella about this. To be honest.
So what is the story exploring though by doing this? Like, what is the point of like choosing this particular midwife to bring a city to life?
I don't know.
Andy, any guesses? Or?
Well, right, it's just something about whose city it is, what's the character of the city, what's the point of city, right? Whose job is it to take care of the city, and who does the city in turn take care of?
And maybe because he's an outcast and he makes disparaging comments about the sort of white pseudo middle class people and cops and people like that. So he's feeling very much as a loner in the city. So that's kind of that he takes on that mantle, that responsibility to bring the city into being. So
but I feel like there's also a way that outcast and loner in the city is actually typical rather than atypical, right? Like there's so many people, everyone's an outcast and loner, right?
And Paolo does make the point when he's like, oh, you should meditate. He's like, I'm not going to do that white girl yoga stuff. And he's just like, all right, white girl yoga, Indian yoga, like all these different kinds of people here, you are now responsible for, basically, right? He's like, so as the kid who started off the story very much human, has all of these very human perspectives on other people in the city as the story progresses. Part of his like becoming of the protector, the keeper, the personification of the city, he needs to encompass all of those lives. That's a point that Paolo makes. I think it's that. I think it's about like who belongs to a place, who defines a place, right? All these cities that are described have a certain character. I like how Paris is described as snobby. All right.
Yeah. It's probably like most capital cities, I think. And I think there's a definite trait amongst people to characterize a whole country by its capital city, and in my experience, the capital cities are nothing like the rest of the country. They are totally different.
Yeah. And New York isn't even a capital city, neither of the U.S. nor New York state itself. Though some people say it's the capital of the world, but that's just not in the literal sense.
Well, as I learned,
good they named it twice
from a recent musical, New York might have been the capital.
True. Might have been, but it's not. Yeah. So. Andy, do you feel personally slighted by the fact that the next American city is Los Angeles and not Chicago?
I mean, I can see why they did it. I can see where that goes. I don't know. I feel like Chicago's got a lot more character. I get why New York could be the first, okay? I'll grant you New York the first. If it was a story about LA being the first, I'm like, well, no. That's not accurate at all.
Technically, New Orleans was the first, but was a stillbirth, which I kind of like because New Orleans does have a lot more character and some more old kind of roots. I mean, New York's just as old, I think, but yeah.
Right. No, I'll buy that.
And it's stillbirth, but still surviving.
It's a going concern.
Yeah.
Well, because there's two versions of the city, right? There's the city, and then the capital C city. And so it didn't become the capital C city, but it's still...
okay.
Right?
But it didn't die like Atlantis.
It didn't die like Atlantis. It's still going as a regular small C city. And maybe it'll get big again.
Yeah.
Although not with climate change.
I know that was one thing. So the story came out in 2016, and there's two things that with the 2021 mindset, like, not that it didn't age well, but it hits different. That's the best way to put it. Hits different. So one was like, all of the like, if a police officer and a black man are within, like, can see each other or within like visible range of each other, you have to mention all the right, which in 2016 could have still been refreshing the story, where now it feels almost like obligatory, which is fine. I'm cool with that. But it's just funny how society has sort of changed in its narratives about this, where like now that's no longer surprising or fresh. That is a default fact that we all accept when you read it, which is a credit to the movement to bring attention to that. But it's just interesting how like it no longer feels fresh just 5 years later.
Right.
And the other thing is this horror, this eldritch horror coming out of the sea to kill cities. You're like, what if that's just Mother Nature trying to get rid of the real parasites? Like, with all this climate change was already definitely well documented in 2016, but now it's, as we were saying before the show started, like the media is reporting on it more in those stark terms in a way that it wasn't in 2016. So everyone's just like, maybe the eldritch horror should win. Just a thought. Like, what if? So yeah, hits a little different in 2021.
I will say this about what I'm sure will be the third great city born, Chicago. Well, of those first two cities, one of them's going to flood and one of them's on fire, and the other one is adjacent to the largest source of fresh water in the world.
But also the Midwest is going to have a lot of flooding with climate change, so Chicago could also flood.
Yeah, but with fresh water.
Yeah, but I can still flood.
So it's okay.
You can't breathe it.
Well, but you can move back.
Yeah. Back into the hills of Chicago.
No, that's the beauty part. Just flat.
Fantastic.
Shift over. We just get on one side of the lakeshore and we push.
Okay, well, I'm glad you have a plan for Chicago.
You should write a story about it. Pushing your great
Great Lakes
city.
are going to become the Great Ocean. But yeah.
Yeah.
That fresh water. I don't care. We can do whatever they want to do. I'll drink them.
Okay, so another thing that I didn't know how to read it. You know how sometimes the cops didn't turn into horrible monsters and didn't notice and harass him, and other times they did? Is that trying to make an exception for some cops that are just like a part of society but aren't parasites versus the ones who are, or did he just get lucky? I don't know. There wasn't like enough for me to get a sense of that.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. I kind of felt like he just got lucky sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that looking at the reading tour where it came from and looking at the comments, there was one person in particular in the comments who refused to read it because the cops are shown in a bad light, and people were trying to explain and say, well, it's not all cops, and no, it's I'm not going to read it, and I think she is black. I think the author. So I think she's trying to share, and she I think she does quite a good job of putting in the main character that sort of sense of concern and fragility around cops, and so I that is that is a common thing, isn't it? That black people. I remember Maya saying that she gave her kids the talk, and saying, if a cop tells you to do something, you do it straight, no matter what, and you don't take the risk of anything being misinterpreted. So I think the author does a really good job of creating that anxiety, and yes, it's just the couple of cops that actually chase him. So yeah, I think that was deliberate.
Yeah, and I think it was smart that the first time you always get across the concern of fragility, which is very valid based on the lived experience, but it doesn't happen every time. I think, but sometimes, because in a way that's even more terrifying, right? Because you don't know when it's safe, when it's not. It's so unpredictable. Like sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not, and you don't know, which I thought was good. Do you guys have any ideas why the ancient tentacle enemy wants to kill infant cities? Like, what is this thing that's trying to kill cities? That's never really explained, but it doesn't need to be.
No, that's one of the things that I just gladly accepted and moved on from. If cities are being born, obviously there's some unnamed horror that wants to kill them. That's what unnamed horrors do, I guess. That's
what Paulo basically said. Yeah,
right.
Like anything being born, there's a predator out there to eat it.
Right.
Yeah.
I did read one of the.
Go on.
I was just saying. I don't know why I jumped to this thought, but I was also reading the comments on the thing, and one of them decided to name the unnamed narrator York. I just thought that was cute, right? Like Paulo.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I think I've been thinking of him as York, and I forgot he was unnamed.
Very good. Very
Yeah.
good. And I think sometimes it's not necessary to go into details. It's like a lot of horror, isn't it? You don't have to show what the horror is or describe it. It's just that the horror part is the effect that it has on the characters. And I think that's fine here. I think that's we don't need to know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, like, I don't know. What's horror usually? Horror's usually death or entropy or something. So,
Yeah. Also, I think moving a little bit onto the prose, I thought also on my first read through, this didn't jump out at me as much as the second, but I think she did a really good job of effectively and vividly describing things that are hard to describe. Like the whole mega cop thing, you could really picture it, and that's a really hard thing to do. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the writing, and it has that sort of easygoing style, despite it being sort of magical realism stroke horror, that it just sort of pulls you into the story, and you read it like any other adventure story, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
City Corner, great.
It made me think also of other stories that kind of do this, that personify like a concept or a place or a thing. And there's a lot of stories that do this. It's a bit of a tradition in that sense. Remember when we read like The Red Tower by Ligotti? Like that one had some of this as well. But it also made me think of American Gods by Neil Gaiman, which there's the new gods. There's like the god that's media or a technical boy. And then I was like trying to remember who were all the new gods. So I was looking at a list of the new gods, and I forgot Spook Show. Spook Show also hits different in 2021. Spook Show is the god of conspiracies. It's amazing. And then he's embodied in different ways. There's like the town one, the more regional one, the world one. It's every possible conspiracy that you think is happening that a lot of people believe in. There's a guy. I'm like, whoa, it's different now. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Technical Boy was another one. Bombs and guns. Yeah. American Gods is really good, and I should reread it, and everyone should read it. Anyway. It's funny because my brother, he read it out of my recommendation, but he almost stopped because the main character's name is Shadow. He's like, I can't do this. And I'm like, just do it. Just do it. Shadow.
I read it specifically, not even on a fantasy kick. I was reading con man books. And so Mr. Wednesday got me on doing cons. I like doing cons.
Yeah. It's true. You do like con man books. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to say about the story? I have one more thing, but it's kind of obnoxious. I'm debating whether or not to say it.
I think you should. That's what we do here in the show.
Yeah.
Just to have this one moment where I rolled my eyes.
Yeah.
Which was when after the dream where Paulos in his like city form helps protect York, I guess, the unnamed character. And then the kid wakes up the next day and he goes, it's italicized, Sao Paulo. Okay, this reveal came way too late. It feels obnoxious right now. Like we all figured it out. We know.
Yes.
We know it's Sao Paulo.
Right.
That's the one thing I was like, ugh. But it's like an obnoxious thing to say when the story is really good. But like, and maybe it's the protagonist being behind, right? Going, oh. But it feels like the reader's supposed to go, oh, with him. And it's like, no.
No.
I got this a while ago. Thank you. Yeah. Any other comments, obnoxious or otherwise?
No, I think I fitted mine all in. Fitted, fat. Fote? I think fote is the past tense.
I think just
Fote,
fit.
yeah, that's right.
Nope. Pretty sure.
No, definitely not. No.
That's not the Queen's English.
Footed.
Who did?
Whatever.
Anything else, Cheryl? Nope. Okay, so ratings.
Yeah, we do that. It's on a scale of 1 to 6, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
To confuse people.
I'll go 4.5. I enjoyed it. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. I was trying to decide between a 4 and a 5. And I think I'm going to go 5 because I don't believe in half measures.
All right. I'm going to go 4.5.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of on the same place.
Yeah.
So
right
Angie,
in there.
Yep. What are we reading next week?
Next week, we're reading a story, and that story has a title, and that title is The Teresa Job by Colson Whitehead.
Okay. But before you go, tell us which... Oh, my gosh. Before you go, tell us which city you think will be birthed next in our Facebook discussion group, the Literary Roadhouse Readers. And we could use a podcast midwife. Help the podcast breathe by leaving a review on iTunes and supporting our podcast on patreon.com/Literary Roadhouse. Every bit helps. And as always, share this podcast with the squamous eldritch horror mega cop in your life. Until next time, read a good story. Also, I don't know if it's squamous or squamous. That's another word I've never said out loud before. I've only ever read it.
Squeamish.
Well, that's not squeamish. That's a different word.
Squamous.
Yeah.
I've only ever read it and never said it out loud, so I don't
I
know.
always felt like that was somehow related to squash. Like it might I don't know why, right? But like it's blobular, like a gourd.
Imagine you're like boiling squash and it gets really soft. Like you're like boiling it for hours and it's not going to be good. That could be described as squamous or squamous. Squashmas. All right. I don't know if I'm going to edit this or if Andrew's going to edit this. Please leave this in. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.